There we go. And we are live with our good friend Barry Simon of Datamax. And Barry, thank you for joining the Stramaglio Show. We're honored to have you and very much appreciate your time.
Mike, it's my pleasure. You've been a friend, your whole family's been a friend for a long time. So I'm looking forward to this.
Yep. And it's one of life's greatest gifts, vice versa. So thank you, Barry. So let's start a little bit from the beginning. So Barry, if you could give the audience give us just a little bit of a lowdown about how you started your career, and then I want to follow up about Datamax itself.
Well, interesting. I went to school at Southern Illinois in Carbondale. I was born and raised in Chicago and went to school there and got a business degree. And when I graduated, I was recruited by IBM. And when I met with them and talked to them, the first thing out of the conversation was that, well, your first assignment is going to be in Ohio. And I said, what do you mean first assignment? So bottom line is I chose not to go with it, which surprised it surprised them that I didn't accept the position because IBM back then was probably the first thing you should do. And Patty and I were debating whether we were gonna, we knew we were gonna get married. We were just debating, when we were gonna do it, and 'cause we met in college, and we did get married. And then a good friend of mine, we got together and we got in this office supply and printing business. So we had a place in Carbondale. We had one outside of Southern Illinois, and then he was from St. Louis area, and he did that. And we were young. This is late '70s. We were all young, and prime was high and everything. But we had businesses, and then we bought a business in Ruston, Louisiana. And Patty and I moved to Louisiana, and I don't, Chicago boy, they weren't overly thrilled with having a Yankee in in Louisiana, but I never really told them where I was at. They had bumper stickers that said "Drive 70 and freeze a Yankee." So uh, we eventually sold the business there, and then I moved to St. Louis, and he went with Xerox at the time, one of my and I chose not to go big company, and he introduced me to Steve Sumner, who at that time, it was Datamax. Steve's dad just passed away a few years before, and then the name just changed to Datamax. And we met, and we hit it off. I mean, and started there in 1981, and then 1983 we bought an operation in Little Rock. Steve's brother, actually one of Steve's brothers, came here. And 1985, there was David didn't really want to, I guess, either be in the business or want to stay here. So Steve and Ed came to me and said, "Would you be willing to move to Little Rock?" And we moved here in 1985, and the rest is history for how long what we've done and what we've grown.
Wow, I didn't know that part about moving from St. Louis to Little Rock because of Steve Sumner and his brother. That's incredible. And so, what? How many years then? When was that? When was Data? 1981. So you just had a recent anniversary. Datamax did, right?
Yep. Well, different ones. I mean, are different, different stuff. In Little Rock, obviously, we bought Little Rock in '83, so we did 40 years here, and then I just had. I mean, I've been pretty fortunate. I've had some of our people been with us for 40 years and plus. So David Holzhauer, our division president here, he just celebrated his 40-year anniversary with us.
Wow, incredible! What a ride, huh, Barry?
Oh gosh, it's unbelievable, Mike. The things we've seen and do, and where we've come from, and what it looked like.
So I know this is probably a little unusual question, but when you took it over, could you ever have imagined you rolled forward all these years to the great success that you and the Datamax team have had?
No, I always, obviously, I've always been a goal setter my whole life. Even back when, I put little collages up and it drove Patty nuts. But I would say, when we do this is what we're going to do. So I always was a goal setter and stuff. And when we came here, we did the same. Did the same thing. We started establishing goals of where we wanted to be, where we wanted to go, and how we were going to get there. And we just stuck to them. We did a lot of good planning. We do planning every year and have since the beginning. And yeah, it started. We had some good growth, and in 1993 we had probably a really big year. Well, actually, let me back up. in 1985 when I first came here. I mean, and this gets into a little bit about what we were doing. A guy named Carl Bergar, who was in St. Louis, he got me involved in CDA and the Copier Dealers Association, and that probably was the starting point of starting to really help and go through things and see where what we were doing, what we weren't doing, and I was a young guy in my late 20s, and started learning a lot, where we wanted to be. And then in 93, we had a big year growth wise. And a guy named Bill Frazier, who I'll get back into Bill because Bill's, we've done a lot together. And he told me about a guy, and I met Mike Reardon before, but I met Mike, and we talked and everything, and we started in 1995. Mike and I shook hands, and we still talk today about all the things that we've done together and how we got to where we were at. And it's been a great ride from there. And that's when we got into SBS Gaskin team, and now Cody and Steven are both in the next generation. With Mike and Joe Goodrow that are doing that. And that's kind of where we're going to. And the other part, and I don't know, I mean, I'll just kind of give it to you. And if you want something that would be different, just let me know. The other part that the things that I guess I always looked at were being involved in the community. I knew, not being from here, that we had to do something to get involved. One of the first things I did besides the CDA was YPO, Young Presidents, and that made a huge difference. And that really was one of the conversations I had with Jim Fuchs, because Jim was in it, and he shared with me that would be a good group. And so I got into YPO, and that was very, very good. And then obviously from there I started being involved in the community. We do things. I got on some boards and that stuff, and we just started finding that we got a great reputation because of that. People started knowing Datamax not just for what we did, but for doing the things we do, and we carry that on today. I mean, I always joke around. I mean, I was chairman of the board for this Riverfest, it was called. And I mean, I didn't know anything about music and to that level, and these were big music things. And I remember coming back and talking about a band, and Cody, I'd say, "Who is this?" And Cody would tell me who they were, and that stuff. But we ended up having a great year, and it was funny. Along with that, the junior league were a big part of this. They were a big part of the festival. And one of the ladies there, she was part of the committee and stuff. And I remember I got a call from her husband, and he said, "Hey, I was told to call you to buy a copier." And I was in there, and my wife said that, "No, you don't call anybody else, just call Barry at Datamax. He'll get you taken care of." And that's when I started realizing that the power of being involved in this stuff and doing things. And with the latest, when I did Dancing with the Stars, just a few years ago, when we raised $300,000, I didn't know how to dance. Doing salsa dancing was, I mean, it was different, but it was fun, and we had a good time.
Barry, I got to tell you, that Dancing with the Stars thing was hilarious. That had to be one of the most fun things you've ever done in your life.
It was fun. It was different, and you got to take yourself out of your standard mode and stuff, and challenge yourself to do other things.
And you were good.
Well, that I
You
guess
were good.
well, I didn't hurt myself.
Jenny Fisher and I were talking about that not too long ago, and she was impressed how good you were. I said, me too. Anyway, so let's go back. You mentioned a few names that are incredible names in our industry. You mentioned Jim Fuchs and Mike Reardon and Sumner, Bill Frazier. I mean, these are some of the most iconic, successful, gracious gentlemen in our industry. Uh, would you say that they were really the inspiration for you, or who else was an
Well,
inspiration?
I have to say, well, one, the person that we went in business with, the Office of Applied Business, was a guy named Harvey Hartman, and Harvey is the first starting point that we had, and I mean, from there. But then when I went to Datamax, probably the first mentor that I would really say was a guy named Dick Collier. And Dick and I did a lot together, and talked and went through things, and he was very. I could always pick up the phone and call him and talk to him. And then, the relationship I've always had with Steve. I mean, Steve Sumner and I have always had a relationship that we both understood each other and knew where we were going and where we needed to be. And, um, I mean, I think those were probably the mains. When you get into, Jim and John Cookta, I mean, and Bob Goldberg, I mean, these are all people over. I mean, there's too many names that, to go over. One of my close friends was Steve Jacobs. I mean, Steve, we met on an AB Dick trip in Hong Kong. And I mean, it's hard to believe on some of these things, and to be able to pick up the phone and call and talk and share things. They were the board. If I needed a board, they were it. And same thing with Mike. I mean, Mike was a person that I could always feel confident that I could pick up and get the right answer, or and he would never. And I guess I should back up. He never really said this is what you ought to do. He would always come back and say, "Here's the options. These are options." So you made your decision, but he gave you the right options to kind of keep you on the right path.
Hmm. Well, you know that old saying that if you want to predict your future, just look at your history. And your history has been absolutely stellar, both as a business person, and as a company. And so when you think about your history, and now you've got family basically in the business, where do you see Datamax, 5, 10 years down the road?
You know, Mike, it's an interesting question, because I think you almost got to go back to the history of where we evolved. One of the things, because I mean, I started in the business when we were selling mimeographs, spirit duplicators, scanners, and offset presses. And you think about it, there's some people who don't even know what those are and existed. And we progressed from there. And then, you go into electronic typewriters, forget the regular type, electronic typewriters, and they're gone. And then fax machines for the most part. I mean, all these things have evolved to where we were at. And even when we first got into, we were so excited about the copier that it would duplex. I mean, and so I guess where I look at this thing, and I share this with our people all the time, is one of the things that we're very good at is servicing and taking care of business to business. And to sit and say what that looks like, I don't know that I can sit back and say, hey, here's the new thing. What I do know is that we'll be prepared for it when it does happen. And I mean, we're into managed services. We sell phones, we sell cybersecurity, document imaging, all those things. That'll all still be part of it. But I don't think print is dead. I mean, I really don't. And I think there'll always be something. What that looks like 5 years from now, I don't know that can tell that. I do think production for us is a big product. I mean, we got to know that and know where it is. The other thing that I think is going to be huge, it's artificial intelligence. I mean, if you and we really don't know where we're at with that yet. I mean, and I think there's going to be a way that maybe we're going to be in the servicing of that and how it looks and how it feels, but we're not there yet. I encourage all of our people to, we got to start using it now. We use it with our agent dealer, we use it in our sales side, and we're starting to use more of it because we got to be familiar with it.
Yeah, well, artificial intelligence, we sure got a earful the last couple of years at ECS, right?
And that's where that's really when I came to the conclusion that we better start knowing it and start, we can't be afraid of
No, you can't. I'm more afraid of humans than I am of
it.
So let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned a little while ago that you have to continue to educate the company and educate yourself. You've been a supporter of the Patriot Pack from day one, and you've also been a huge supporter of the Executive Connection Summit, which both of those things are obviously, I think, important for the community, meaning raising money for Jillian or for veterans, and the ECS. What is it that you're busy? You got a lot to do, and I know when we invite you to ECS, you have always been there. What's the driving force? What's the most important thing for you to come to something like ECS?
Well, before ECS, let's go back to the Patriot Pact because I mean, One of the things that I think not only myself and all of our people in our office were excited about when you came. We used to have the dinner the night before at my house, and what I also liked is my little grandchild Barrett. He got to see things that he couldn't see. You know what I mean? And you're bringing in things that are important to what important to us. And then when you come in the next day and we show all the employees of what it's about, it goes back about giving back. We need to give back, and I think that's important. And then they learned from all these other people that were here, sitting in a different set than just business. And it was fun. We would go to the side and we'd talk. So I always enjoyed that. Always. I mean, having that part. Now ECS, the first the starting, we've been every one, or I've been every one, and I think John Cookta was too. So, I mean, for me, the starting point was just to understand things that weren't part of just being in CDA or all these other functions that we were at. Now, I would say the last 5 years have been probably some of the best that I've ever been at, because it's topics and stuff that we didn't get at these other places. And then even now, where we're bringing in some of the manufacturers, or a lot of the manufacturers are coming and they're seeing it, and we're doing things and people are talking that you wouldn't see normally. And I like the breakaway team. I think that's interesting, I mean, and how we do those, what they think and how they talk. And then they also get to hear about us. I mean, because you can't lose history. You can't. What I mean? And those are all the things. So to me, if you're not going to ECS, you're missing out. You really are. I mean, you get into. I learned a lot more about hiring. Our military people. That's helped. I mean, the whole different things. And I even came back and started talking to our own military people to see, why did you come here, and what can we do to help that. Uh, so I think it's great. I think moving it to February is even better. I mean, I had to put my food up one time to that little heater to heat it back up before I could eat it, but but that's all part of it. And you get to see and meet people that you wouldn't have met before.
So, and you have been at every one of them. So I'm grateful for that, and also grateful for your nice comments. When you think about, and the breakaway team is going to play a big role in the next one. I'm committed to it. It's going to happen. Um, what is your advice to the younger generation? Now, when I say that, there's like multiple generations, right? I mean, you got Jenna's, my daughter's age, and then you have whatever else they call them, Gen X and everything else. So it's almost like there's multiple generations we have to learn how to communicate with. So, but if there's a general uh, suggestion or philosophy or guidance you would give to these younger folks, what is it?
Well, I mean, most importantly, and this is no matter where, whatever age you are, in our company, and I think that culture trumps everything. It really does. So it's the culture that you want to have in your company. And the other side of this, it's the right person with the right job and the right relationship. And I say that because a lot of times everybody's the right person. They're usually in the wrong job or have a wrong manager and stuff. And it's very important to make sure that that part you have right. And I think sometimes when you're interviewing or we're talking to younger people, we need to make sure that we're going to meet their needs, and they understand that they can meet our needs. Because too many times there's confusion, and I think sometimes people want to do something because I think I got to have that. Well, to me, it's not about that. It's about team fit, because we've got a lot of young people in our company, but they're the right young people. What I mean? And I think that's important to know. I mean, and when you're doing it, and then you've got to look at things that are important to them. And then you've got to back up and say, okay, how can we implement that? And how can we accomplish the goals that we had? One of the things I make, I mean, this goes back to the pandemic. During the pandemic, a lot of people were freaking out and, going through all these things. And we made a fundamental decision that when it happened, we weren't letting anybody go. Nobody. I mean, it was just going to happen. And I went on, did videos and talked to people and stuff like that. And, as I went through that, that's about family, and family's tough when you don't get to see them and people are working. It doesn't mean you can't work from home. You just got to be careful. because you don't see each other. I mean, I remember talking to some of my friends and their family members, their mom and dad were in a nursing home and they couldn't go see them. They're looking through a window. That was tough. And I think those are the things you have to look at. People talk about work life balance. I said it's a combination of all of this. Everybody, you want. And I think it's putting it all together and they have to understand how do we get the and I hate to say job done, but how do we get it done in the most efficient manner? And then how do we really make sure that it's family? I mean, just you and I are talking, but I think this is good. However, when you and I are together, we talk to a different level. What I mean? And that's really what I would say is that, is find something that you're going to be happy with and also, find a company that you're right. We feel that we have all that. We feel that we're a progressive company. We want to do things. We have fun, just like the dancing. Now, actually, this weekend, we're doing the dragon boat races. We got a whole big thing where our whole group, and we're racing dragon boat races down at a place called Lake Willestein. And it's fun. You bring your families out and stuff. And I think that's some of the stuff you've got to be able to have and do. And then us people have to listen to some of the things that they need and want and see if we can work in it. I don't think it's just, hey, I have to work from home and that's going to make my life better.
You bring up some interesting things, and frankly, I agree with you. Culture trumps everything. There's an expectation you have to be good at what you do, but where the expectation really, I think, rises to the level is when culture complements that kind of competency. So, what you say you have a lot of young people at Datamax now. What have they taught you? What jumps out at you that says, God, I would never have thought of that, or that's interesting how they think. Has anything like that happened?
Well, sure. I mean, some of it has come down to some of our programs that we've incorporated, whether it be in our healthcare. One of the things that we just recently did because it came out was, and I should say we did it a couple of years ago, where people wanted to do like stuff for their church, or they wanted to do nonprofit things and stuff. So we came up and gave them. We said, hey, you could pick a day, and it could be that they wanted to take off for a holiday that we don't celebrate normally. I mean, as a company. And they said, we want to be able to do this. So we gave them one day to pick whatever day they wanted, and it didn't count towards their PTO or anything else. And they got a chance to use that day. And I think that was important. You just got to listen to what are people looking for and do what you can. And sometimes you can't do it all.
Well, I remember, yeah. Well, that's a great idea, though. One day off to do whatever they want, and if it's for church or some community thing, that's awesome. Do you remember a few years back? I remember we were at some BTA meeting, and somebody got up there and was giving a presentation about how young people don't work as hard as our generation, and or don't have the same uh, understanding of the importance of relationships. And I thought at that time that I don't know that I buy into that. But how do you feel about that?
Well, no, I don't buy into it. Because there were people even then. Here's the thing: if you're passionate about something, it doesn't matter. You just got to become passionate, and they have to understand that passion. So what we try to do is if somebody's having a hard, if it's in sales and they're not having a good, you meet with them and you talk to them and you say, hey, what can we do to help and do these things? And you bring them back into the passion and that they want to go out and make calls. They want to, do these things. It could be that they don't know enough about product. It could be anything of that stuff. So I think it really comes down to is that I think we had that earlier on. I mean, is there things that are different? Like, hey, I mean, gosh, I remember I used to have early morning meetings at 7 in the morning. We brought everybody in and we train and all that stuff. Maybe we can't do it. You have to do 7:30 now or 8, or something of this stuff. But I think as long as you're given the right reason for the people to do it, they'll do it. I think just to say, hey, you got to do it because I did that in the past, that doesn't fly. So you got to give them a reason, and they have to feel good about it. And then there has to be the outcome. What's going to come from that?
Well, I totally agree with you. To me, there were ineffective boomers just as much as there's ineffective Gen Xers, right?
That's right.
So let's go back a little bit to the Patriot Pack for a minute, because I want to recognize all that you've done for the pack. So the Patriot Pack basically started out as a bucket list thing and turned into all the things you know. But I remember one of the most eventful moments with the Patriot Pack was every time we would come roaring into your parking lot, you'd have your people outside, and they're always waving and they're coming over and giving us hugs and just being so patriotically gracious, you know. And it was always a lot of fun for us to pull into Little Rock. But I don't want to name the lady, but you have, because I don't want to embarrass her, but if you want to embarrass her, it's okay. But I remember one of the most unbelievable moments was when one of your employees came over and she gave me her husband's her vest, his vest, who had just passed away. And she had asked me to deliver that vest to the wall. And that was probably the most unbelievable moment for the ride. Brought us all to tears. And how's she doing?
She's doing great. She does. Her name is Barb Knoll. I mean, and I don't think she would heard about being known. Barb still is. She's been with us now quite a long time. I mean, and stuff, and probably over 17 years. I'd have to get it verified, but I think at least that. And she does our telemarketing for bringing in FTA business, our first time accounts. And she always appreciated that. Always was committed at that time of coming in and as well as all of our people. I mean, a lot of people really enjoyed that. I mean, but that's our culture. I mean, see, it's different. I mean, and they liked being out there not because they had to, or we said, "Hey, go out and clap and do these things," as they wanted to.
Yeah, it's really one of the most special visits of all time for us. So when you and we're grateful. I mean, we're very grateful for everything that you've done and your generosity. But Barb, I'm glad you mentioned her name because she's pretty special. But she to me is the epitome of your culture. And how did you, when you started Datamax, did you say, I want this kind of culture, or did it just evolve?
I would say, I mean, it probably, I would say it evolved and kind of back up in it goes back to that 1993 time frame, and we had all of our managers and stuff, and we went off, and it was a mission statement. Well, at that time, I wrote a mission statement because that was the thing to do. Everybody said you got to have a mission statement. Well, when we met and all the managers got together at that time, and they said, well, that's your mission statement, it's not ours. And I said, that's God, it just kind of slapped me in the face. You're right. Well, we went off site, and that's when we came up with our company philosophy, which is the little blue book that you've seen. And we came up with our company philosophy. We all went, and that's where we started deriving at, I mean, how do we want to go to market? What do we want to do? And then a year later, we came back with the principles of operations. And every new employee, we go over that with them. I mean, sit down and talk about it and make sure that they understand it. And that's really kind of where it went through. And probably the other part, I guess, early on, I just always felt that that if you have the right culture, it's gonna be a lot better than anything. Because I've been around where there wasn't good culture. I mean, and the philosophy was, and I read the book. It was also about creating raving fans. It was that time because I remember Mike would say, What is that about?" I mean, and I said, "Well, what it's about is the fact that I don't want people just to be satisfied. I mean, it used to be we want customer satisfaction. Well, I don't want that. I want somebody to say, if you where do you work? Oh, Datamax, what a great company. It's not, well, they're okay. They pay okay. And the same thing out of our customers. I want our customers to be able to say, they take care of me. I pick up the phone, they call me. It's not, well, they have a good product, their price is okay. That's not a raving fan. That doesn't build you to the culture that you have
I love the
and that you
raving
want.
fan thing. It's in your signature line. I love it.
Yeah, relevant technology, raving results.
Yeah. So, final business question, and then a couple maybe exit questions. But your Datamax, like every independent dealer, is so dependent in many ways on the partners you pick.
Mhm.
So, What in your mind makes a great partner?
Uh, Mike, that's a super great question. I mean, because I think sometimes, we have to bring it back to reality with our vendors and stuff. Because and vendor to me is what you call them when they're not a partner. They're just somebody you buy from, and that's not what we want. And I mean, to me, when you have a partner, you have somebody that's willing to listen to you. And I would always say there's always going to be a time, I don't care where you're at and what you do, that maybe we're not doing well and they need to be able to work with us. And then they're not doing some of the things right and we need to work with them. That's when you have a partnership. I mean, that's not when you start saying, well, if you're not doing a job, we're going to set somebody else up, or any of that. That doesn't work. And the other side is like what's going on right now. I mean, there's so many variables with tariffs and all these things that are going on. It's about communication. Communicate. Tell us what's going on. Don't hide it and don't do things. And then when you're looking at stuff in a marketplace, let's sit down and talk about how we can be part of that. What can we do to help grow the business and do it in a manner that would work together for both of us, not one sided. And I think that's kind of, but it's really no differently than I would look at our employees. I mean, it's the same thing. It's a partnership that we have, and it's about creating that, and it's about doing the right things, and that's the most important. I mean, they need to do the right things, and so do we. And I think sometimes that gets lost.
That is a great answer. I don't remember exactly what you said. I think you said a vendor is someone you buy from,
Right.
and a partner is someone you work with.
That's
Boy,
right.
powerful message for everyone. So, final question on business: the looking forward for the next year or two. If you're a young dealer, 10, 15 years old, or even an experienced dealer, what's the best advice you would give to these younger dealers and or other dealers?
I would say know what you're good at. I think, and make sure that you do the best at that. Sometimes people want to veer off. It's kind of like the old thing. What's our why? Why are we in business and what do we do? And I think it's really important to know what you're good at. And I think too many times people veer, and they get themselves in trouble. And I would say know what you're good at, stay focused, communicate, over communicate. Keep everyone informed on what's going on in your company. Don't ever kid yourself to think that everybody knows that stuff. And I think be involved. I mean, I really do. I think you got to be involved with your customers. What's going on now, Mike? And I've shared this to a lot of different people with all the things that are happening, with the tariffs and all these things, people are all concerned. What's my price going to do? What's this and all that stuff? And, in fact, I talked to somebody this morning. They said, well, are you going to raise your prices? You're going to do this and you're going to do that. And I said, no, back up. I said, how do you feel when, people are coming to you and doing that? I said, if all of a sudden we went to our customers, even though, I mean, they hear it and you could do it, and we start saying, we're going to raise this, we're going to do this, we're going to charge you for that, all of a sudden they're going to start freaking out. And all of a sudden, these people that have been loyal to you as customers are going to say, hey, well, gosh, maybe I need to start looking around. Maybe I need to start seeing other things. So I say, be real careful when you're going to these things on your existing base and make sure you don't go out and start doing something silly. And then don't be surprised if all of a sudden your competitor has that a business because you've lost sight of it.
That is great advice. Great advice. The whole tariff thing is a whole nother podcast, right? But
Right.
wait until you understand the facts and don't veer off what's right. Do the right thing. I like that. That's a good way to end the business part of this. And the last fun question I have: what's your favorite Frank Sinatra song?
Well, Mike, that's easy. Obviously, a boy from Chicago. Come on. Chicago, Chicago, my kind of town.
I love it. We're both from Chicago. That's a
That's
great pick.
right.
Great pick. So, with that, for our audience, from our audience to you, thank you very, very much. You gave some really good counsel and advice. I love learning more about your early days, and I just want to let you know how much my I admire you. I have tremendous respect for you. And I don't mind telling anyone in this audience, I'm never embarrassed to say I love you, Barry Simon.
I love you too, Mike Stramaglio. You and Mo both. I mean, I mean, you're great friends to us and to me.
Well, thank you, everybody. And we will talk to you on the other side. So have a great weekend, Barry.
All right, take care.